Hello and welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Jet Smith and I'm the head coach for speech and debate at Highland High School in Pocatello, Idaho. This is a video for a topic lecture on the new March-April 2025 Lincoln Douglas debate topic, which reads, "Resolved, the development of artificial general intelligence is immoral." The purpose of this video, like all others on my channel, is to provide free and accessible resources for improving at speech and debate. And this is an important topic because it's what the Idaho State Debate Tournament is on. There are lots of other state championships and important tournaments that occur on this one as well. And it's our last topic that we get before nationals. So in this video, we'll go over four things as we do in all of my Lincoln Douglas topic lectures. First, we'll analyze the resolution itself to make sure that we understand what we're being asked to debate by the National Speech and Debate Association. Second, we'll talk about framework arguments, value, premises, and criterions that you could read on the topic. And third, we'll talk about 10 affirmative arguments that could be turned into contentions. And fourth, we'll talk about 10 negative arguments that could be turned into contentions. We'll begin by talking about the resolution through 5 different aspects, the first of which is always trichotomy. Now, trichotomy is what type of topic is it? Policy, fact, or value? Now, this topic once again reads, "The development of artificial general intelligence is immoral." This topic is very interestingly worded because it's simultaneously a value topic and a fact topic, because it's a value topic when we are making a judgment on something. If something is moral or is it not moral? The development of AGI versus not developing AGI, essentially. But it's also a fact topic because we are making a definitional claim or a yes or no claim. There's not a lot of room for nuance. It's not on balance or it's more moral than it is immoral. The topic reads, "The development of artificial general intelligence is immoral," which sounds like what a fact topic normally would be. The thing that I think I'll note is that this topic feels more like a big questions debate topic, but as a LD resolution, whereas LD topics have been more becoming one-person policy topics that use the word ought instead of should. This is a more sort of traditional LD topic, but it's phrased like it would be a year-long big questions topic. So I think there's some really interesting discussion and debate to be had. First of all, what are we debating? This topic is all about artificial general intelligence, not to be confused with the public forum debate topic, which is about artificial generative intelligence. Now, if you read this article from the Scientific American, I really think you should. It talks about how there's not actually a huge consensus on what the term artificial general intelligence actually means. So the best definition that I've found came from Google, a Google Cloud article. And it says that artificial general intelligence, or AGI, which is how you should flow it in shorthand, refers to the hypothetical intelligence of a machine that possesses the ability to understand or learn any intellectual task that a human being can. It aims to mimic the cognitive abilities of the human brain. In addition, AGI systems also possess certain key traits that distinguish them from other types of AI. Generalization ability. AGI can transfer knowledge and skills learned in one domain to another, enabling it to adapt to new and unseen situations effectively. Common sense knowledge. AGI has a vast repository of knowledge about the world, including facts, relationships, and social norms, allowing it to reason and make decisions based on this common understanding. The best way that I could put it is we are essentially debating if we could create a robot or a machine learning program that could mimic human functionalities in the brain or even in the physicality. That is artificial general intelligence. So an AGI would have to be pretty much at least as capable as becoming smart as some human beings are. Now, the topic is about the development of that artificial general intelligence because it doesn't really exist yet. I think development is another crucial word on the topic that there will definitely be debates about. The best definition of development that I found, because most definitions of development are circular, they just say the process of developing. But development, according to Encyclopedia Britannica, is the act or process of growing or causing something to grow or become larger or more advanced, or it is the act or process of creating something over a period of time, or the state of being created or made more advanced. So I think if you combine all of this together, the topic is about the invention, the process of growing, enhancing, making greater artificial general intelligence, because it either doesn't really exist or it only exists in very limited forms now. Now, immoral is the other most important word on the topic because it is the evaluative term of the resolution. That is what the debate is all about. We're not discussing whether or not artificial intelligence in general is good or bad, or whether or not it is just or unjust, or whether or not it creates good quality of life or not good quality of life. We're debating whether or not it is immoral, the development of artificial general intelligence. Now, immoral is kind of the opposite of moral, or not in conformity with accepted principles of right and wrong behavior. So that means the framework debate is telling us what are the accepted principles of right and wrong behavior. And the contention debate, the affirmative will say that those systems of right and wrong behavior, the development of artificial general intelligence, does not follow. And the negative will say that it does follow those rules. So now let's talk about some important points of background information that you'll need to understand the topic. Prior to recent expansions in the abilities of generative artificial intelligence, AI was mostly algorithms used to make predictions or sort through data. Think Alexa or the Google search engine. But now many of the popular AI tools are considered narrow artificial intelligence. They can only perform specific tasks based on the data that they were trained on to produce similar looking data. Think ChatGPT. Artificial general intelligence is what many people in the AI community are now working towards. Machine learning programs that could possess autonomous self control, a reasonable degree of self understanding, the ability to learn new skills, and solve complex problems in unfamiliar settings. Those are the qualities that you'll see most people talk about a hypothetical artificial general intelligence would be able to do these things. So AGI is a currently theoretical concept and research goal. Although some people do argue that generative AI models like ChatGPT could be classified as general artificial intelligence, most in the scientific community would not agree with that and would say that AGI is still a little bit far off of being developed. Now, fourthly, who cares about this topic? It's not a policy topic and it's not a country specific topic. So, who is at stake when we are talking about the morality of this? Well, the entire human race is at stake, many would argue, business and industry leaders, future generations, but also the artificial intelligence that would be created or developed. The AGI itself is it potentially a stakeholder that we should care about when we are discussing this topic. What are the core disagreements, the key areas where the affirmative and negative will differ? Well, the affirmative is typically going to be on the side of humanity, and the negative is going to be on the side of either technology or technology benefiting humanity. Some affirmatives may also be on the side of technology, of saying that we need to respect the rights of the technology that we would create, and that developing AGI would not do that. Also, there's a discussion to be had of, is artificial general intelligence going to enhance human life, or is it going to replace human life? And then lastly, we have, is it going to help save humanity, or is it going to destroy humanity? This is Killer Robots, the topic, except I guess technically that was the lethal autonomous weapons topic from quite a few years ago. So I think it's really important to understand that there are different levels of artificial intelligence. And there are four main levels that I want to talk about. These are not necessarily like a pyramid. There is some overlap, but the topic is supposed to be focused on level 3 of these levels. First of all, we have artificial narrow or weak intelligence. That would include programs that are tailored to a particular task, such as those trained in image recognition or AIs that play chess. They have lots of pattern recognition, and they're mostly prediction models. They can't come up with new stuff, they can just react to situations based off of the data they've been given. The next step up from that would be generative artificial intelligence. This is machine learning designed to create new data that is similar to or mirrors the data that it was trained on. This rapidly processes and synthesizes information to create new content. Think ChatGPT or image creation systems. The third level of AI, what we are working towards creating now, is general artificial intelligence. Theoretical machine learning technology with human-like intelligence, the ability to self-teach, learn new skills, solve problems it was not explicitly trained for, etc. Generally, this is an AI that has to be as smart or slightly smarter than the average human being. The fourth level of AI is what would be achieved after general artificial intelligence, and that is artificial superintelligence. This is an AI that would far outstrip even the smartest of human minds across all intellectual domains and capacity. This would be going beyond what human beings would be typically capable of. So if general AI is like a robotic human brain, Super AI is like more Jarvis, or the superhero from Marvel that is way smarter than any human being, and has all of this knowledge of all of these systems across lifetimes. So think robot human that can act and think like a human is Gen AI, and then superhuman, like superhero levels of intelligence, would be artificial super intelligence. So now that we understand more what the topic is about, how do we tell judges to evaluate? If their job is to be an ethical decision maker, how do they make an ethical decision? Well, through the value premise and the value criterion. So, because the topic is about morality, the moral status of the development of AGI, there's only one value that makes any sense, and that is morality. Now, I know many of you disagree with me on this, especially in Idaho. We have a vast pool of coaches and judges and students who believe that morality is a bad value and should not be used. But hear me out. The topic is about what is moral. Every other value has to default to morality. Every other value just has to be a system to get to morality, because that is what the topic is asking us to evaluate. The judge, their literal job is to determine if something is moral or not. Their value is in the topic, morality. There is no other value that matters more, because even if you prove that AGI is just, or the development of AGI is good for quality of life, or the AGI is good for societal welfare, all of that does not necessarily prove the topic. So if you say, oh, but in order to be moral, you have to be this other thing, that is not a value, that is a criterion. So even if you don't like morality as a value, take it up with the NSDA, because they wrote a topic where the only value that makes any sense is morality. Any argument about why morality is too vague of a value can just be answered by your criterion. Yeah, I know it's vague. The goal of morality is to say, following right and wrong principles, my criterion tells you what those principles are. And any value that isn't morality is just a stepping stone or a middleman for getting there. So then your framework gets confusing, because you have a criterion, and then you have a mini value, and then that mini value has to lead to the maximal value of morality. Overall, if it's good enough for Lauren Zoe, the 2014 national LD champion, writer of the Victory Briefs LD blog a lot of the times, leader of multiple debate camp lectures, designer of the framework and philosophy courses on speechanddebate.org, if one of the greatest minds about LD of all time says that morality is a good enough value in general, then it's definitely good enough for you on this topic. However, I know that some of you are not going to listen to me, or you are afraid of judges or coaches at the state tournament, believing that morality is a bad value, so you want another option. If you want to be bad and wrong, I say that with love, here are some of your other least terrible but still terrible options. Your first option is ethics, which is not necessarily the same thing as morality, but there are people out there that say ethics is a system of right and wrong that leads to individual morals of right and wrong. So you could read a value premise of ethics and basically get to read the same arguments as morality values, which would be good, without triggering people who hate morality as a value. If you want something farther away from morality, I think that is less good. But your two least bad options on this topic, in my mind, would be human dignity, although it's not necessarily the most relevant, because an artificial general intelligence might need dignity or deserve dignity, but would not be human. Or life. If your goal is that this should only be about humans or only be about living things, then that could be a good value. But it's not necessarily relevant, because an AGI would not be life under most definitions. So once you know what your value is, hopefully I've convinced you that it should be morality. What criterion should you use? You have a lot of different options, and I've laid out many of them here. Remember, with your criterion must explain how to evaluate the morality of an action. That is the goal of a criterion on this topic, because the judge's job is to determine if something is moral, so the criterion needs to tell them how to do that job. Or at the very least, your criterion should be a set of rules that something must follow to be moral, so that you can use your case to prove that artificial general intelligence's development does not follow those rules if you're the AF, or does follow those rules if it is neg. So some examples that you could pull from, the first couple I have a philosopher for to look into: respecting human dignity from Immanuel Kant, maximizing expected well-being from John Stuart Mill, utilitarianism stuff, Joseph Nye, ensuring consistency with three-dimensional ethics, Andrew Linklater, fulfilling one's duty to avoid harm. You could also read criterions depending on the contentions you want to read about respecting autonomy, minimizing undue suffering, ensuring equality, protecting human rights, resisting structural violence, or respecting people as ends. There are more options out there, but you must choose a criterion that is capable of explaining morality. The card that you read with this criterion, the justifications you read with your framework, should be talking about how this is a moral decision-making calculus. If your cards on your framework do not talk about the moral nature of something, then they are basically useless, because that is what the topic is about. Now that we've talked about framework, let's talk about 10 arguments for the affirmative, which are reasons why the development of artificial general intelligence is not moral. Now, the affirmative and negative have essentially flipped on this topic, where the affirmative needs to prove that developing it is a bad idea, and the negative needs to prove that it is a good idea. So the affirmative will win by making negative sounding arguments. The first argument is environmental harm. So in the status quo, the time window to stop climate change that wipes out all of humanity and all other life is rapidly closing. And developing AGI will make it impossible to escape that window, because it will exponentially increase energy consumption, massively increasing emissions, and making reductions in resource usages needed to stop climate change impossible. And then you talk about how climate change will cause ecological disasters and resource depletion that will lead to widespread death and suffering. Second argument area is job displacement. This is the robots will take our jobs argument. That unemployment right now is stabilizing, and there are still enough jobs for human beings with narrow AI's existence, but developing artificial general intelligence will result in a mass elimination of jobs that are currently being done by human beings, which will drive wages down and unemployment up. Because if robots can do your job for free, employers can be like, well, I don't need you anymore, or I don't need you as much. The total number of jobs will depreciate, which means that if there's more supply of workers than there is demand for workers, they'll work for less and less and less money. Now, mass unemployment and wage decreases would cause a huge spike in poverty, hunger, and immense human suffering. The third argument area the affirmative could choose to take is weaponization and militarization. This is the Terminator argument. The robots will take over the world argument, hold on. I misspoke. This is the idea that countries will take artificial general intelligence and use it as a tool of mass destruction. Right now, the world is relatively peaceful. That's not to say that there aren't conflicts and horrible things happening, but great powers are not at war with one another right now. But artificial general intelligence development will be used by military and terrorist organizations to create new weapons, to create new soldiers, to manage and deploy existing tools of mass destruction like nuclear weapons, and this is going to massively increase the likelihood of great power conflict, fueling endless war and raising the chance of miscalculation. Fourth argument area is the violation of the artificial general intelligence's autonomy. Now, in the status quo, AI tools are not sentient. They cannot think on their own. They are used as tools for humanity because that's essentially what they are. But if we develop artificial general intelligence, something that is capable of human level thinking, that is essentially sentience, or artificial life, and they will have the abilities to think like a human being, but will lack the rights of a human being. And we will still try to use that as tools. Essentially, we will be creating robotic slaves and denying rights to these sentient beings, even if we created them, and forcing them to work and serve humanity would violate their autonomy, because most people agree that autonomy is based on consciousness or the ability to think. So we would be creating something with the ability to think, but not allowing it to think for itself and having to do work for us. So, fifth argument area is bias and discrimination. It's well known at this point that AI is typically trained on biased data, and that would be even more true for artificial general intelligence, which will perpetuate and amplify existing biases. Whatever the AGI is would be programmed to have the same biases that other AI does, but also human level thinking capables of bias. We see plenty of humans that are supposed to be intelligent, but think horrible, biased, and discriminatory things, and we will be creating robots that do the same thing, essentially. This will give immense power to robots to make decisions that will negatively impact marginalized groups, furthering discrimination and inequality. The sixth argument area on the affirmative is replacement or takeover of humanity. This is the more Terminator style argument, not the one I talked about earlier. Right now, we are at the top of the food chain. We are the dominant animal species on Earth. But development of artificial general intelligence, machines with human level thinking capabilities, will result in machines that are more powerful than us, even though they can think as much of us. They'll learn further. They might eventually turn into super intelligence, and they will become so impossible to control and will lack human weaknesses to the point where they can take over and try to replace all of humanity. That this artificial general intelligence will have some sort of realization that human beings are the problem, that human beings are inferior as a species. They will turn against us and slowly destroy us until humanity no longer exists and has gone extinct. The seventh affirmative argument area is about privacy violation. Artificial intelligence is trained on copious amounts of data, including a ton of personal data that people think is private but is being used to train AI programs. But the development of an AGI would require even more data than we can imagine. Amounts of personal and private biological, social, financial, medical, educational, etc. data from millions, if not billions, of human beings would be at stake and being used to train these AGIs. This would result in a massive loss of privacy that would undermine human dignity and freedom while also increasing risks of things like fraud and identity theft, deep fakes, and things like that. The eighth affirmative argument area is a misallocation of resources. Right now, the human world is full of suffering from starvation, from lack of clean water access, from war and genocide, not enough shelter, curable diseases, etc., inequality. We have all of these major issues. And the development of AGI will take so much resources, so much money, so much power, so much energy that could be applied to addressing these existing problems in favor of creating a far out solution that will take so long to develop that it won't be able to help anyone currently suffering. And your argument here will be that the existing suffering continuing unnecessarily because we would rather, in the same way that rather than end poverty, we want to send rich people to Mars, is immoral in and of itself. And that we will not be able to fix the suffering that continues to happen, even with the eventual development of an AGI, because we decided to focus on that instead of helping people who need help now. The ninth affirmative argument area is removing the purpose of human life or losing the value to life. Now, human beings derive satisfaction in our lives from solving problems and being a contributing member of society. But by developing artificial general intelligence, we will automate the problem solving and hard work based tasks that make most of us feel accomplished and purposeful for now. So human beings will lose their dignity, lose their self esteem and their meaning to life, and have incurable mental health problems as a result of this artificial intelligence general development, and that will cause massive suffering and perhaps even self-harm and suicide because of AGI taking over everything that used to make being human definitionally. Finally, the 10th affirmative argument area is stupefying or lowering the average intelligence of human beings. Humanity is currently at a crossroads and is having to choose to continue to learn rather than machines learning for them with generative artificial intelligence. By developing an artificial general intelligence, this will cause human beings to stop learning how to do basic, intermediate, and high-level skills in thinking because an AGI will just do it for you. Human beings becoming less and less smart as AGI develops will do more and more for us, making us less creative, less happy, and less capable of solving problems if AGIs ever fail or turn against us. So those are 10 arguments as to why the affirmative might claim that it is immoral to develop, or the development of artificial general intelligence is immoral. However, many of these arguments you might think that artificial general intelligence could solve. But remember, development is the process of making something. So this is a debate the affirmative will say about the process of developing artificial general intelligence and whether or not that is moral, not what the usage of artificial general intelligence might be. The negative is going to want to argue that the development is moral, but also that because the purpose of development is usage, or because the development allows for usage, that once we get artificial general intelligence, it will be able to solve so many problems, maybe even the problems that the affirmative brings up, and that in and of itself is moral. So the negative arguments are a little bit more about usage than development, but the more you can prove that the development itself is moral, or that the end result of development is moral, the better. So I think that it's harder for the negative to be deontological, and it's easier for them to be more consequentialist in thinking. But negative arguments on this topic are going to sound like affirmative arguments usually do. Usually, a negative argument on this topic will say, there is a problem happening now. Developing artificial general intelligence will help us solve that problem, and solving that problem is moral, which usually is what the affirmative wants to say. So, the first negative argument area that I've come up with is eliminating meaningless work. Many human beings spend a significant portion of their lives engaging in repetitive and unfulfilling jobs. But if artificial general intelligence can automate these meaningless jobs, it will free up humans to pursue more meaningful activities, labor, hobbies, etc. We'll have greater life satisfaction and societal contributions as we get to engage things beyond just subsistence or keeping ourselves alive. We don't need people to do the same sort of mind-numbingly boring or insulting labor that they currently do, because robots can do it for us. The second negative argument area is increasing economic productivity. The US government is currently, I apologize, I didn't change the actual text on the slides. I will do that before posting the video, but I can't stop the recording. So this argument about economic productivity says that right now, economic growth is stagnating across the world and getting worse, but by developing artificial general intelligence, we can increase productivity across various sectors, because now you have robot workers that can work for more than 8 hours a day, that don't get fatigued the same way that human beings do. And so they will make us more productive across pretty much every industry. And human level thinking can be done 24/7 instead of just for 8 hours a day, for example. Increasing our economic productivity will massively reduce poverty, because we can provide the essential goods and services that people need to live and thrive for much, much cheaper and more efficiently, to make sure that everyone has access to it instead of just the select few that can now. Third negative argument area is about decreasing human error. So humans make mistakes. That is definitionally part of being human. We get tired, emotional, sick, etc., all of which can interfere with our ability to make good decisions. But an artificial general intelligence would not have any of these same weaknesses, meaning that it can make decisions with human level thinking without human level error in complex and routine tasks, which will improve safety and reliability across our society. This can help prevent accidents, increase efficiency, and safeguard our human lives and resources. Fourth argument area is improving existential threat management. Now, we are vulnerable to tons of different threats that we have been unable to fully solve, including climate change, pandemics, asteroid impacts, war, and an artificial general intelligence will enhance our ability to predict, prevent, and mitigate existential threats by providing more reasonability, rationality, around the clock thinking, dedicating artificial intelligences with human level thinking, where their only purpose is to try and solve and mitigate these threats, makes it easier to fix them. This will help avoid global catastrophe and safeguard the long-term survival of our species. The fifth negative argument area is scientific discovery. Now, scientific progress is moving forward, but is limited by our human cognitive abilities, the pace of experimentation, research funding, etc., the number of scientists, the number of people with degrees. But an artificial general intelligence being added to science would enable us to accelerate scientific discovery. We could have robot scientists that don't have any of the same weaknesses or needs that human scientists do, leading to breakthroughs in various fields. This would allow us to enable better scientific discovery to cure diseases, solve climate change, expand our understanding of the universe, invent new things, etc. Sixth negative argument area is healthcare improvement. So the healthcare system faces a lot of challenges. It's expensive. There's not enough doctors. There's not accurate diagnoses. We don't have cures for many things. But artificial general intelligence being utilized in the medical field, having robot doctors essentially, or robotic doctor minds, would revolutionize medical care, drug discovery, diagnostic, early screening. This will save lives by providing better personalized medicine, improving diagnostic accuracy, and accelerating drug development, creating essentially Baymaxes from Big Hero 6 for everybody to have. The seventh negative argument area is improving education. Now, educational systems currently struggle to provide personalized and effective learning experiences for all students. There are not enough teachers are overworked, classroom sizes are too big, education is very one size fits all, but artificial general intelligences could act as private one-on-one tutors and teachers to personalize education, adapting to individual student needs and learning styles, and acting as a sort of memory bank for us as well to just learn more. If you forget something, AGI will always be able to tell you, making us smarter overall. Now, this enhances learning outcomes, reduces educational disparities and inequalities, makes us smarter as a species, and will help prepare students for the future workforce. Eighth argument area is bettering transportation. Now, as the negative, you could claim that transportation systems are facing a lot of problems in safety, efficiency, and environmental impact. But it's not just self driving cars, but it could be planes, trains, boats, bikes, everything like that, buses. Artificial general intelligence enabled transportation systems would make the roads safer, more efficient, and sustainable. This will help save lives, reduce traffic congestion, improve productivity and efficiency, and even minimize the environmental negative impacts of transportation. Ninth negative argument is enhancing caretaking. Currently, there are aging populations across the world and people with very busy lifestyles and people with disabilities that are all creating a growing need for caretaking services for older people, disabled people, children, things like that. And artificial general intelligences could provide companionship, assistance, and support for the elderly, for the disabled, for children, all of which would improve the quality of life for those vulnerable populations, while also alleviating the burden on a shortage of human caregivers that we are seeing across the country and the world. Tenth and finally, the negative could make an argument about strengthening the judicial system. Having robotic judges, juries, lawyers, things like that could enable us to have a more fair justice system because currently the judicial system is subject to human bias, inefficiency, inequitable access to lawyers, to legal knowledge, expertise. But an artificial general intelligence could be key to the impartiality of judicial decisions because they could be programmed in a way to be better than human beings in terms of legal knowledge, fairness, lack of bias or emotion, and this will ensure fair and efficient legal processes, reducing discrimination and enabling the rule of law. That brings us to the end of this video, but I want to give you a couple of final thoughts before you log off. This topic is more like a big questions topic, as I said earlier, than many recent LD topics. So you need to think about it differently. You are trying to get the judge to see things your way. They're not acting as a hypothetical decision maker, but just as a free thinker. You want the judge to agree with your thought processes, which means you need to have practice convincing people to think differently about this topic. Having conversations with teachers, students, parents, administrators about the topic, seeing what people think, going back and forth and landing at logical conclusions is going to be the best way to be good at debating this topic. Secondly, LD is a very short debate event when you compare it to most others. There are only 5 speeches of back and forth time, but this topic is so complex and deep and interesting that there are 10 speeches worth of back and forth on most arguments. So you need to be ready to give not just the first level of refutation or the second level of weighing. You need to be thinking 10 steps ahead for the argument that you would arrive at the end of a 10-step back and forth. Otherwise, your arguments are going to sound shallow and judges are going to be left thinking, but what about this? But what about this? So you've got to think about it from beginning to end from the get-go. Third, please, 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 please listen to me. Value morality. Don't read a different value or just combine the value and the criterion and read a standard so that you can focus on what classifies as moral or what makes something moral and then contentions that prove that. This is not the topic to try and read a weird, sketchy value because you're going to have to prove that it achieves morality anyways. So don't waste your time on value premise clash and actually debate the topic as it was written, not as you wish it was written. With that being said, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.